When coincidences happen, people will think one of two things. One is that it's just a completely random event, or two, that there is a deeper meaning behind them. Here are 10 amazing coincidences you won't believe actually happened. Number 10. From the start till the end. Some people just can't catch a break. Imagine leaving your home so you can avoid a war and finally have some peace and quiet, only for the war to find you in your new house. You're gonna be the unluckiest son of a gun for that to happen to you, and that's exactly what happened to a 46-year-old grocer named William McLean in Manassas, Virginia. He lived during the American Civil War and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. However, war doesn't like people saying no to it, so it sucks the unwilling in. The Civil War officially broke out in 1861 with the First Battle of Bull Run. Bull Run is actually a stream which cuts its way across McLean's farm, so you can imagine just how close he and his family got to the battle. When the battle was over, McLean moved his family to a new house in Appomattox, Virginia, hoping to leave the war behind. He did so successfully, for a time at least. Then in 1846, the Civil War came to a close when Robert E. Lee finally surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant. It happened in the Appomattox Courthouse, which was just steps away from McLean's new property. So basically, old Bill McLean was personally present both at the start and at the end of the Civil War. Number 9. The first and the last casualty. War is never funny, but whether intentionally or not, it leaves quite a few amusing coincidences, much like the previous entry. However, the setting of this next coincidence is World War I, but it still has something to do with the start and its end. The first ever recorded English casualty of the war was 17-year-old John Parr. He was later buried with honors in the St. Symphorian Military Cemetery. As the war continued to commence, it claimed a further 1 million British lives. The very last recorded casualty was 30-year-old British soldier George Edwin Edison. Of course, he was also buried with honors, but coincidentally, he was buried in the same cemetery as Parr. In fact, the first and last casualty of World War I were buried in graves facing one another, just 15 feet apart. Number 8. The luckiest frequent flyer. 2014 wasn't a very good year for the airline industry, primarily because of the 2 back-to-back tragic plane crashes involving a single airline. First, it was Malaysian Airline Flight 370. It departed for Beijing from Kuala Lumpur on March 8, 2014. It had 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. This flight suddenly disappeared somewhere above the Indian Ocean, with no trace of the passengers, crew, and plane ever found. To this day, it remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Then it was Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. It was a passenger flight flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. 283 passengers and 15 crew were on board. While flying over the Ukraine, the plane was unexplainably shot down with a Buck ground-to-air missile by pro-Russian separatists. Fortunately, all passengers and crew members lost their lives in this unprovoked attack. However, it's not that both planes were of the same airline as the coincidence here. The coincidence comes in the form of Dutch cyclist Martin de Jong. He was actually scheduled to board both flights and avoided certain death by changing flights at the last minute both times. Number 7. To Laura, from Laura. Do you know what a doppelganger is? According to paranormal experts, it's an entity that takes the exact likeness of a person and basically looks like a body double. Legend has it that if you meet your doppelganger, you'll suffer a terrible death. Well, a 10-year-old girl met her doppelganger, and the result wasn't all that bad. In fact, it gave rise to the most amazing series of coincidences you've ever heard of. In 2001, a 10-year-old girl named Laura Buxton stood in her front yard with a red balloon. On the side of the balloon, she had written the words, "Please return to Laura Buxton," along with her address. She then released it into a strong wind. The balloon traveled roughly 140 miles south before descending, and finally landed in the yard of another 10-year-old girl. The second girl's name? Also Laura Buxton. After getting in touch and explaining the coincidence, the girls decided to meet and discovered a whole range of uncanny similarities. Not only did they look and dress alike, but both girls had 3-year-old chocolate labs, a gray rabbit, and a guinea pig, and both had brought their guinea pigs to the meeting unplanned. Number 6. Dog means dog. Mbabaraam is a dying Aboriginal language in Australia, and one that couldn't sound less like English. So it came as quite a surprise when linguists studying Mbabaraam realized that the tribe's word for dog is, well, dog, with no connection to or derivation from the English word. The coincidence is technically considered a false cognate since they sound the same but only coincidentally share a meaning. This particular case is often used to warn people of assuming a relationship between words based on surface-level similarities. Number 5. Plum pudding. According to mathematician Joseph Mazur's book Fluke, the 19th century French poet Émile Deschamps met an Englishman named Mr. de Fortescue, who introduced Deschamps to plum pudding for the first time. Roughly a decade later, Deschamps saw plum pudding on a restaurant menu and ordered it, but the waiter said they had sold the last one to a man in the back of the restaurant. They then called out to Mr. de Fortescue by name. Another decade passed and Deschamps went to a dinner party that served plum pudding. He joked that the party must be for Mr. de Fortescue, who then inexplicably showed up at the door at that very moment. He had accidentally come to the wrong door, on his way to another dinner party. Number 4. Wedding vows in a bottle. Fred and Lynette Dubendorf were strolling down the beach with their dog, picking up the bits and pieces of trash they found to throw away. While doing so, they noticed something in a small plastic bottle washed up on the shore. Upon closer inspection, they found that it was a message that really surprised them after they read it. The message contained the marriage vows of another couple, Melody Kloska and Matt Bears, who had recently had their wedding ceremony on a beach across Lake Michigan. The note contained the couple's addresses and their wedding date, which the Dubendorfs were amazed to discover was the same as their own beach wedding date. They took it as a happy sign that both of their marriages were meant to be, and wrote them a letter to congratulate the newlyweds, to their utter shock. Number 3. In the same photo. Many couples constantly look for a sign that their relationship is meant to be. Some seek advice from psychics and the like, and some wait for a sign from God. Some even compare astrological charts just to make sure that they have found in each other the proverbial one. I'm sure that this couple took this amazing coincidence as a sign that they were meant to be together. Amy Madden and Nick Wheeler were sifting through old family photographs in anticipation of their upcoming wedding, only to discover a striking coincidence. They had unknowingly taken their first picture together as children, 11 years before they had actually met. The amazing thing is that the two grew up over 300 miles apart in opposite corners of England. It just so happened that many years before they actually met, Nick's family had been on a beach vacation in Amy's hometown. The snap of the two shows Amy and her family sitting just behind Nick, both playing in the sand. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today's pick is a couple of photos of what looks to be the same person, but the fact is they're actually two different individuals. They didn't even live during the same era. The resemblance of the two is very striking, but that's not the only coincidence here. Find out more next with number 2, Reincarnation. The guy on the left is Enzo Ferrari, founder of the legendary Italian car company of the same name. On the right is soccer player Mesut Ozil, and as you can see the two are nearly identical despite the fact that they aren't even distant relatives. But there's a coincidence here that may make you think that reincarnation is in fact real. You see, Ferrari died in 1988, the same exact year that Ozil was born. Whether Ferrari's soul did get reincarnated into the infant Ozil's body, well, people are divided. Some say yes, while some dismiss it as a cosmic joke. But it's all up to you, really. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Number 1. The Gym Twins. Twins have always been a fascination to me. The concept of two people sharing the same womb, being born at the same time, and sharing so many similarities is something I kinda wish I experienced. There is another more mysterious side to twins though. There have been instances wherein twins somehow manage to also live identical lives. While that's quite possible, especially for twins who grew up together, there are also cases of the same happening to twins who grew up apart, sometimes even not knowing about each other. This is one such case. Separated at birth and raised by different families in Ohio, the Gym Twins never knew that the other existed until they met at the ripe old age of 39. Despite being separated at birth and raised by two different families, the coincidences surrounding these two are nothing short of bewildering. Both sets of adopted parents named the boys James and called them Jim for short. Both men married twice. Remarkably, both first wives were named Linda, and both second wives were named Betty. Both had only one son, who they both named James Allen. According to Ripley's, they drove the same car, had similar jobs, and even vacationed in the same place. Hey, thanks for sticking with us till the end of the video. And while you're still here, why don't you check out the channel's other amazing videos? As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Later, everybody!